Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of my favourite people and some of the world's biggest stars, and we've got one for you today. Bobby Wilson is an incredible singer with a remarkable stage presence and voice. Of course, the son of the late Jackie Wilson. Bobby, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're in to meet with you.
Well, it's wonderful. We were going to do this over the telephone via the UK, and it just turns out I'm in Vegas and you're in Vegas.
I live in Vegas. Vegas is home for me.
What is it like being here? I mean, I come here for a month a year, and it is very intense. Do you live off strip and avoid all the nonsense of it?
I'm 30 to 40 minutes away from the strip. So where I live, you don't feel the Vegas at all. You feel like you're home. So there's a lot of residents outside of Las Vegas.
Exactly, and you can live a normal life. For you, I know we were just talking as we came up to the room about working here. Mm-hmm. Is this a place that you aspire to work, or for you, is it about touring the world?
For now, it's touring the world, and also making a name for myself. Although my father's name is synonymous to the world, I like to make a name for myself and get my music out there. So for me, right now, it's touring the world. Vegas is sort of a retirement city. It
does seem like it, although for you that's way off, because we listened to your voice and this brand new album and it's never seemed richer. You've got that beautiful tone. You can't really be trained that. That's something that you were blessed with.
I thank you for that. That's very nice of you. But I always wanted to have my father's voice, to be honest. But and I learned to live with my voice because I usually don't like listening to myself. But I really appreciate that. That's a very nice comment.
Let's go right back to the beginning. I guess you were surrounded by singing and joyful music from the second you were born.
Well, my mom gave me up at birth. I was raised in a foster home, and my foster mother was a gospel singer. And she ran the choir, and so I would listen to the music in the church, but I was sick a lot, so I had to have my legs reshaped, and I had to have my feet reshaped because I think I might have been a preemie baby. So I spent the early years sitting on the couch just listening to music on the radio. The Otis Redding, Tyrone Davis, B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, I can name them all. Sam Cooke and James Brown. When James Brown used to sing, most people don't remember that. Before the 70s, James Brown was singing in the 60s. And so I would hear all this music on the couch, and it moved me. Of course, I heard Jackie Wilson's music, but I think the music got me through. And by the time I got older into my early teens and started running and was able to run and stuff like that, then I got more physical and kind of got away from the music a little bit, but came back to the music in my early, late 20s.
I was reading your life story, and it's one of great sadness but great hope too. I wonder how you're here today and sane. There's a lot of baggage that comes with being given up as you describe it. Mm-hmm. How long did it take for you to accept the cards that you were dealt and not be bitter and angry and frustrated by it?
Well, it's funny. Most people look at my life and say, "Well, your life, you had a rough life." It wasn't a rough life to me because I didn't know I was having a rough life. It was my normal life. So everything was the best. I made the best of what I could make. Now, my mother will always tell us, you can depend on nobody but you and God. That's it. And no excuses and no mistakes. If you make mistakes, you get up. If you fall down, you get up. And you're on your own. And God is the only person you depend on, nobody else. She said, you don't depend on me, you don't depend on your teacher, you depend on God and yourself. And I think that's kind of been my mantra for my life. So as I got older and started, and my life started unfolding, I met my mother and then eventually found out who my dad was, I just accepted it as it was and kept moving. I just always had my goals out in front of me. So I guess that's the only reason. I mean, I couldn't live in the past. I don't want to live in the past.
And I guess that's why you have the optimism today. And in your music, you can see how that legacy lives on. What was it like between you and Jackie? Did you really get to know the real Jackie Wilson?
No, I never saw him or heard of him. I knew who he was. It really wasn't until Peter Hernandez, who hired me in Hawaii, hired me for his Love Note show, a doo-wop show. it wasn't until then that he showed me an album cover of Jackie Wilson on Billy Ward's Dominoes that I saw somebody that looked like me. I thought it was me standing in the album cover, and it blew me away. And then later, Paul Revere of the Raiders came and offered me a job with Legends in Concert to do Jackie Wilson. And it's kind of funny because I said to Paul Revere, I said, I'm an artist, I'm not an impersonator. And he kind of grabbed me by my ear and says, let me show you my show. You know? And he says, I knew the guy, and you act like the guy, you talk like the guy, and blah, blah, blah. And so Paul really sucked me into doing a tribute to Jackie Wilson. And after that, the rest is history. I mean, the Four Tops discovered me at Atlantic City, at Bally's, Park Place, and they called some of the family members, and they called Billy Roquel Davis, which was my father's first cousin, who wrote all the first songs. That's Why I Love You So, Satisfied, Reed Petit, To Be Loved, all those songs. And they said, you got to come down here to Atlantic City to see this guy. He was in New York, 2 hours away. He's a living, breathing Jackie Wilson. And when Billy came and we met, I noticed his skin was chicken skin every time I would say something. And I said, you okay? He says, I got to keep telling myself you're not Jackie. So that was that.
Extraordinary. And then we look at your father's legacy of music. You mentioned Reed Petit there, probably in the top 5 greatest songs ever.
Right. Right, Reed Petit is one of the biggest songs, and as you already know, it was #1 here in Vegas. In the U.S. And then in 1987, it went #1 again after he passed away. So that's a song that's going to live forever. You know, that's what I like. I remember one time, not to name drop, but one time I was working with Dionne Warwick, and I hadn't gotten picked up by a record label yet, and she asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to record music that's going to last forever. I don't want to do hip-hop or rap or any of that stuff. I said, and I'm not knocking him. I just don't want to do that. I want to do music that I can perform at 20 and I can perform at 80. And she goes, well, then you're on the right track.
And these aren't easy songs, let's be clear. I mean, when you look at that legacy of songs you just mentioned, they're all very high, right. They're all very fast, and very tough to sing. And
Jackie was very articulate when he sung that song. I couldn't believe, when I listened to it myself and I was studying, I was like, I can't believe how articulate he is on the notes and intonation, and how he handled the music. I mean, he just basically manhandled the music, and that's not easy to do, hard to duplicate. Somebody, I think I was being interviewed by Billboard magazine, and they asked me, how do you compare to Jackie Wilson? And I told them, there's no comparison. Jackie Wilson is Jackie Wilson, the legacy. I'm just Bobby Wilson, doing the best I can do.
And as for your identity, I'm curious to know about how you feel about him as a man, because you didn't get to know him as a dad, you got to know him as an artist.
Right.
Is there any bitterness or sadness there, or do you just look forward and say, you know what, I've got his music and I'm going to hold on to that?
No bitterness whatsoever, because everybody has the cards that's dealt. I mean, his cards, he had dealt with kind of rough cards too. I mean, if you study his early life and then childhood all the way up to adulthood, he had a rough set of cards himself. So no, I'm just grateful and thankful that I'm the face and voice that keeps his music alive. I'm just grateful that I've got a chance to be on stage and perform for everyone, and when they walk away with a smile or a memory, it makes me happy. It makes me grateful, and I'm very passionate about what I do. I enjoy it. I didn't know I was made for this, but I'm glad I am now. My mom used to do what they call Friday night fish fry. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Yeah. Friday night fish fries are basically a house party, and every now and then she would have one, and that's when they put out the lights in the backyard, put the big boom box out there, and everybody play cards and fry fish and have a good time. And they play blue music and they play blue comedy, and they play a lot of jazz and blues. I mean, R&B and blues. And she would always point to me, because we had a basement. She'd make all the kids go to the basement. And she'd put her finger in my face and says, tonight is my show, not yours. And I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? And I go, da-da-da-da-da, you know. And apparently I was putting on the show in front of the guests, and I didn't know it. And she goes, tonight's my show, not your show. You stay in that basement, which I would never do, because the music was so hypnotizing. So I would always come all the way up to the top of the stairs and fall asleep on the top of the stairs listening to the music, listening to the laughter and the fun and people having a great time. So I got great memories as a kid. To me, I didn't have a hard life.
And for me as a DJ, I worked on Gold, which is one of our greatest stations for music of the 50s, 60s, 70s. There's something compelling about the up feel of your dad's music.
Right.
It's inspiring, it's moving, and as you say, that voice is so rich.
Right.
When you stand on stage, what pressure is for you to nail them? Because if you do them badly, they're going to go, well, he's not as good as his dad. Right. There is a pressure there, isn't there?
Well, in the beginning it was, but I came to a conclusion through prayer and meditation that I'm going to do me, the best me that I can be. And if Jackie comes out of me, or you see him or feel him, then so be it. But I'm just going to be me. And apparently the more me I am, the more him I am. And I just did a show just recently in New Jersey at Atlantic City. And it was sort of a tribute. It was my legacy show. And of course, I do every show the same way. I do the best me I can. And everyone came out and said, your father would be so proud of you. You are just like him. And he says, I saw you and I saw your dad, and all I saw was your dad. All I saw was your dad up there. All I heard was your dad. And so I can't ask for no more than that.
What a great compliment.
Yes.
And we talk about the real you. That's where we lead to now. We talk about your past. Here's the present, this new album, which is just remarkable. I've been listening through these tracks, and again, beautifully made, mostly because you've got an amazing orchestra. Then add your voice on top, and the alchemy is just wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, we did that in Nashville with Plateau Music. My producer and manager is Tony Mantor, who produced the album. And we had some great players on it. We had a guy named Sean who actually played for Elvis. And we had a couple of B.J. Thomas players, Tom Wilde on guitar and Warren on bass. And the drummer, I don't know if you heard of this country act called John Michael Montgomery. He's a big country artist. He was the drummer. And I think we used the Memphis horns and some great background singers. So it all came together really well for me. And I'm very excited because now we're going back in the studio in July and this is going to be mostly original tunes and some of my penmanship, and then some songs that I'm doing for other artists, for other writers.
And it's a remarkably made album that's available now. Give your website so people can find out all the information.
It's at BobbyBrooksWilson.com. I'm also on Facebook, Bobby Brooks Wilson. And I also have a couple of music pages, Bobby Brooks Wilson, the Mr. Entertainment, and Jackie Wilson, The Legacy Continues. Both of those pages, check them out. And you also can catch me on Tumblr and Twitter and everything else that's out there.
Is there any better feeling as an artist to stand in front of an orchestra, no matter how small or how big, and hear that music coming behind you and then you're on top of it? Because that's the dream, isn't it?
Well, the dream, I like big orchestras. I mean, I love the bigger the better. My very first time singing in front of a 60-piece orchestra was in Hawaii. A guy named Clyde Pounds was the music director for that, the orchestra leader. And I got to tell you, man, it's like somebody was driving a freight train behind me. It was an unbelievable feeling. So the bigger the better for me. But no, my passion lies in just being in front of them and seeing the smiles on their faces and seeing people really enjoying themselves.
And if there was one last song you had to sing, which would it be?
Nobody But You by Jackie Wilson. I completely, totally relate to that song.
There's sort of a tapestry to his voice, isn't there? There's a richness that's hard to define. Mm-hmm. What do you do to recreate that in your own voice? Where does that come from? Is it just from above and it's right there, or do you have to work at that? How do you treat your voice now?
I didn't know when I started off that I actually had his vocals. I had a vocal coach and a singer named Rhonda, Queen of South Pacific, from New Zealand. She actually passed away from the superbug a few years ago when a super flu bug was going around. She was an opera singer, and I went to her after I started with the Love Notes, which by the way produced Bruno Mars. And anyway, I went to her for lessons, and I didn't think I could sing. I mean, I didn't know how to use my voice. And she said, "It's amazing, you have your dad's range." And she says, "It's just your range, but it's still the same as your dad." And so the more I put my heart into my singing, my music, the easier it is for me to reach the notes and to let it flow. I don't try to do, as they call, the R&B riffs or anything like that. I just let it come out me the way it come out. If it comes up sharp or flat, that's what happens. But if it comes right on time, then that's what happens. It's naturally.
I think for you, having listened to this album, there's sort of a gospel tone that you can't buy. You're born with that. That's something that's in you, can't be trained. And that's magical to hear that live. That's something I'd love to do. When are we going to see you in the UK? Because you've got to come across.
Well, I'm hoping to come across soon this fall. But for you, if you want to, I'm here this weekend, right at Smith Center at the Cabaret Jazz Room. I'm playing Friday and Saturday night with the Doo-Wop Hall of Fame. I'm the featured artist in that show.
Well, if you'd be willing to have me, I'd love to come, because that would be a great
I want
honor.
you to come. I want you to come, so I need you to come check it out.
I would love
It should
to.
be fun, and I got at least it's a full orchestra with backup singers and the whole 9 yards.
Fantastic.
And I'm doing about 7 of Jackie's high tone songs. Repeats being one of them. I'll Be Satisfied. That's Why I Love You So. Lonely Teardrops. Higher and Higher. Baby Workout. A couple more. I can't remember.
My final question was going to be, is there a greater radio record than Higher and Higher? It builds, it crescendos. It's the perfect way to end any show. You won't beat that.
I don't know. I don't think so.
From a radio guy, that intro is just
yeah.
perfect. The ending's perfect. It's a great radio song.
It's a great song. And that's why it's still alive today.
Thank you so much for your time. Bobby Wilson, the brand new album is available now. Give us your website one more time.
BobbyBrooksWilson.com.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for coming across.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me, Alex.